Oh yeah, we built a boat for Mike, and he sold it to a fellow named Ted Turner, who lives lived in Atlanta, and that was a really big deal. Michael really enjoyed the idea of being able to go to his office in Atlanta and complete the transaction. We had a maid that took care of us during the day, and her name was Ruth Green, and she was an amazing lady. I learned a lot of life lessons from her. But one day I had a little accident, and I pooped in my pants. Sorry I looked down, but I pooped in my pants, and I was so embarrassed. She took me outside behind the bushes at the house, and she took a water hose, and she was wetting me down to wash all that stinky off. And my brother Mike was out there, and he was trying to defend me. He said, "Doggy did it. Doggy did it." And that's what he did. Everybody broke up laughing, and it was done. So I don't think I ever poo-pooed in my pants again after that.
Is that what Big Brother was supposed to do?
That is what Big Brothers is supposed to do. He was the best. Absolutely still is. When I was 3 years old, I think I was still in diapers. I was still wetting my pants. And Mike taught me how to pee on the toilet with lifting the lid. And what had encouraged me was that he took toilet paper and he would make toilet paper boats. He'd just tear pieces of toilet paper, drop them down in the toilet, and then what we'd do, we'd stand side by side and we would target those and we would try to sink them. And so that was a big thing. And that's how I learned how to TT on the toilet. Thank you, Mike. Left the family. Lon and Laura didn't have a dad that they could look up to. Larry was off at school. Mike was there. And Mike took the time, and Jeff took the time to take the kids and do things with them. I remember going with Lon and looking at the lights during Christmas. And Lon standing up in the front seat of the car, like he'd always do, and Laura, they'd be looking, and Lon saying, "Yite, yite, yite," as we're looking at all the Christmas lights. And so, but Mike primarily took over the leadership role with the kids, and they looked up to him as being a father figure, and as well as Jeff. Mike, Merry Christmas to you and Gina and the whole family. Love you from the bottom of my heart forever and ever. Amen.
I always remember Saturday mornings, he'd sit around with my sister and we'd watch cartoons. He'd always have a plate of crackers and saltine crackers with a jar of salt. I always had to put extra salt on the saltine crackers. And Mom would fuss at him because whatever meat he had on his plate, he'd let the cats lick off of the plate. But he loved sitting and watching the cartoons, Sesame Street especially, and all the other cartoons. And when the cartoons were over, my sister and I would convince him to go play the piano, and he'd go in there and play the Charlie Brown theme song. And we loved that. Very trustworthy, honest. He treats everybody the same, whether it be a family gathering or somebody in his courtroom that's up for murder charges. He treat everybody exactly the same. You know, I love going and see him in court. That was always interesting. The only thing I hated about it was every time I walked in his courtroom, no matter what was going on, he'd stop what was going on in court, and he'd say, "Lonnie Doodle, come up here and see me real quick." Going in Mike's room while he was studying for college, and he'd have papers everywhere across his floor. And so I learned how to study from him. So I used to be able to sit on the floor like he did, but I learned to do my taxes that way, have paperwork all over the floor. Like David was saying, he's always like a dad figure. And so much so that when I was at his house and my girlfriend, who's now my wife, came over to visit and meet him for the first time, he came out in his boxers and t-shirt. And we're standing there talking, and she kept thinking he was my dad. And she kept saying it over and over again, thinking that he was my dad. And a few minutes passed of having a conversation with him, and he says, well, I guess I should go put on some pants. And this was 10 years ago. He was a judge, and but that was Mike. He didn't mind walking around the house in his boxers and t-shirt, no matter who was there. I mean, another judge there, and he'd be dressed the same way. Mike, we love you. Gina, we love you. And wish you a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we'll see you soon. God bless you.
Mike is about as nice a person as you'd ever want to meet. Never had anything bad to say about anybody. Always positive, upbeat, just a great mentor early on in my law practice. And we just became friends, and we've stayed friends even after he left. And I can't remember what year, maybe 20 years ago, and became judge. Yeah, I do. One comes to mind. I think I had a ex-husband in a domestic case, and I represented the ex-husband, and I don't think he was doing what he was supposed to do. I don't remember whether he was behind in child support, behind in alimony, but he was brought back before Judge Annis on a contempt action. And I remember being a little bit afraid that Mike was going to find him in contempt and maybe put him in jail. So I remember being a little nervous that of course, Mike, very professional, he wasn't going to let our relationship affect what he was going to do, in court with regard to the issues and the parties before him. So I was a little worried he was going to put my client in jail. He didn't. When he got ready to go to court, he was always in a hurry. And I remember watching him, get his files together and be a little bit stressed about getting in the car to drive downtown to bankruptcy court. And he would rush out the door, and more times than I can recall, he would have to come back in to get his keys. He was in such a hurry, he forgot his keys, which would slow him down even more, and that seemed to happen over and over and over again. And I can remember him, kind of almost dancing out in the lobby of the office, trying to get his files together and getting his coat and everything, and then, going to the car to only have to come back. So that's what stands out, is him being kind of hyper and all over the place and always in kind of a hurry. Merry Christmas, Mike. You've been a good friend for a long time, and I appreciate everything you did for me.
Yeah, Mike Annis and I, we started with Bill Sams, but we were on our own. And neither one of us had a single client. We just hung out a shingle. That was in '81. And we took whatever walked in the door. Of course, they could always tell my clients, because I was still working at King Mill at night. I was working full-time at King Mill as a shift supervisor and practicing law during the daytime. And they would always, Bill Sams especially, would always laugh when my clients walked in, because it was pretty obvious they were David's clients. But Mike always, we practiced together many, many, many years. Always had time for anybody. Biggest heart you could ever imagine. and especially always fought for the underdog, or the, let me rephrase that, the underprivileged. You know, he just, he was, Mike is a special person. At one point in time, I remember having a conversation with Mike about picking clients. In other words, if you know that, that there's going to be, sometimes you get a feel, you get a gut feeling not to take a client on, or if you get into with a client and realize that that it's not a good mix, is to go ahead and bail and move on and refer them elsewhere. I remember we had discussions, and that was what we did, and things did well. Sometimes would come in and he'd be white as a ghost because the deputies going from one county to another, they serviced, I think, 7 or 8 counties when Mike was Chief Assistant District Attorney. And the deputies would take him and his staff from one courthouse to the other, and he'd walk in and look like he was scared to death. He'd say, "David, they drove 110 miles an hour going, you know, getting me to court on time." And it was, I don't think he was used to that. Yeah, Mike, I've enjoyed all these years. You've been a very, very close friend. I know we saw each other at Pat's funeral not too long ago, but you're the best. You've certainly been a friend to me all these years, and helped me with my practice to get going. A lot of the referrals we had when I didn't have any clients were referrals that you got me, and it meant the difference of a good practice and just getting along. And you've always been the best friend, and I've certainly enjoyed your friendship over all these years, and everything you did for the office, the hard work you put into it. I wish you the best.
Mike was awesome about everything. He really knew how to keep things between the rails. And if he saw something that might have been askew of those rails, he wouldn't tell me that. He would ask me questions to pull me back in. He'd say, "Well, what if you did this? Or what if that happened? Would you do it this way?" He was always the voice of sanity and reason. Mike was a superb athlete. And people don't think about that because all the things that he did in life were more intellectually based. But he was a superb athlete at all times. One time we were racing all day in light wind, and we were stuffed under the boom, and we got done racing. And in fact, Mike and I were crewing for Dr. Clement on his Lightning. And Mike said, "I'm going to have to go for a run. I'm stove up from sticking my head under the boom and hanging around doing all that stuff." And I thought, I'm not going to go for a nap. And Mike married Gina, but he got Juanita. You know, and I married Beth, but I got Dorothy, and because that's who they are, and she's a carbon copy of her mother, and which you couldn't be a better thing to copy than Juanita Morris. Loyal, kind, sweet, loving, hard worker. No amount of hard work was going to surpass what she could do, and she's that way. But love is the big word. You can't love a man more than she loves my brother. And my brother, you can't love a woman any more than my brother loves that woman. It's not possible. On a scale of 1 to 10, they're 10.2. And of all things, the thing that I think really hurt his heart was custody battles, because somebody's walking out of that courtroom hating your guts, and somebody's walking out of that courtroom thinking that you're Jesus. Now, the funny thing was, when Mike retired from being a judge, somebody called the Austin Road Show, and they said, we hated Mike Annis. We cursed him. We cursed the ground he walked on. We cursed the air he breathed because he found against my son in a custody battle. And then within about 16 to 20 months, we wanted to send him flowers and candy and maybe some money. We didn't, but we wanted to, because everything that Mike Annis said about this custody battle and about what would happen if the son had the child, everything that Mike talked about when he was deciding this, he decided for the female to keep main custody. Everything that he said might happen would have happened. And we are so grateful because Mike basically kept all that bad stuff from happening. All we knew is our son's heart was broken and we wanted our son to feel good. And Mike didn't do that. But Mike made the best decision for our family and for that person, for that young person. And that was a good example of Mike. Yeah, I'd like to wish my brother Mike a great cheer for the spirit of Christmas, and also hoping that we can take in the new year together. And I hope all his favorite football teams win, and that he gets to spend a lot of time with his family. And that's what he really loves, is his wife and children. And if there's 40 people at the Christmas event, he wishes there was 50. So we're all going to be there, and I wish him the merriest of Christmases.
And what made him really, really good in the courtroom wasn't his trial skills. People like Mike. He's the genuine. He's the real thing. He's sincere. You can trust Mike. And I can think of different stories that Mike actually did that you shouldn't do, and he would even laugh at himself, and the jury would laugh at him. But the juries, you got to remember who the juries are. They're people who, they're scared, because particularly if it's a big case, they're nervous and they're looking for someone that they can trust, because you got two lawyers, two sides, they're disagreeing on the facts. They don't know who to follow, but Mike gives them that instant credibility, and they just trust Mike. Mike certainly was not the best trial lawyer I've ever been around. He wasn't the best ADA as far as trial skills, but you know what? He never lost a case. They called me and asked me, what kind of judge do you think will Mike make? And do you think he's qualified? And I said, he's going to be a great judge. And they said, why do you say that? I said, because he has something that a lot of judges don't have. He's strong. We have a lot of judges that are strong, but he has compassion. Mike truly has compassion for everyone. I mean, even in a case, he was always very respectful to defendants' family, to everyone. Everybody liked Mike. And I knew he would make a great judge because of that. Now, sometimes law enforcement didn't understand, because sometimes law enforcement doesn't have that. But as a judge, that's really what a judge needs to have. And every good judge I've been in front of, I want them to be strong, but I always admire them if they have that compassion. I didn't teach that to Mike. That's just Mike. That looks like maybe down in Brunswick, down at Jekyll Island or something. We used to have our conferences down there. See, I just think about Mike and I start laughing. Mike came in and he said, he was telling me about the night before. We were staying at the Holiday Inn. He says, I took Gina out and we were, that kind of a podium thing they have out there on the ocean thing? It's not, you have to go down the boardwalk from Holiday Inn. I said, yeah. He said, boy, it's gorgeous down there. And we walked down. It was just such a romantic setting. We kind of had some romance there. And I said, how much romance, Mike? He said, well, pretty much. He said, pretty much everything. And I said, well, did you get naked there on the beach? He says, well, I had my shoes and socks on. I said, but other than that, no. But no one could see us. No one could see us. And I said, well, that's good. And he said, I just couldn't help it. He says, it was just such a romantic setting. So the next night, or that night, I was just walking on the beach, and I looked up there in that little gazebo thing, and I said, Mike, there's lights on there. And he says, yeah, but it's not on the gazebo. It's just the walkway. And there was somebody up there. Could see him just as clear as if I was looking at you. So I told Mike that. The smile you see, that's the smile. That's the Mike Annis smile. And he just does a little laugh, you know, just can't help but love the guy. Hello, everyone, and particularly Mike Annis, our dear friend Judge Annis out of Augusta. Wish you were here in the Brickyard. The Dogs are playing host in the state playoffs. Everybody is here but you, Mike, but we got you in our hearts, buddy. We're thinking of you. Merry Christmas.
Back then, we had wax bags. And Mike, like I say, being the thinker that he is, he decided he was going to get his mama to get him a rubber stamp made and stamp those bags, "Please save." And so he stamped all his wax bags, and so next time it rained, he threw the papers. Well, all of a sudden, they started getting checks in the mail and cash in the mail and cards saying, "Hope Mike's doing fine. I hope he gets all right." They thought something was happening to him because it said, "Please save Mike Annis." And so he was getting checks and cash in the mail for stamping those bags. But yeah, we threw newspapers and put it at the top of Glen Avenue. And of course, Mike was going to get the first ride, and we safety first. He had a football helmet on. And so we're pushing this thing, and it fires up, and Mike takes off, and it looked like he was doing 20 or 30 miles an hour down Glen Avenue. And he starts screaming about the time he gets to McDowell, "How'd I stop? How'd I stop?" And we're scratching our heads and like, "Oh, well, we didn't put the string on that." So he makes it all the way to Wrightsboro and runs up a curve, hits a tree, rolls around, and of course comes back, and we get to put the methylate or mercurochrome, whatever it was, on him, listen to him holler. But yeah, we were always doing something crazy like that, building stuff. The explosion just rattled our brains, and it was a mushroom cloud like you saw on the film clips of the atomic bomb when it was dropped. I mean, impressive. But anyway, when we stood up, that thing blew in the sand. Our hair was straight up. Our eyes were full of sand. Somehow Bruce's braces got knocked slap off his front teeth and were hanging on the wire. Blew Miss Sanders, the mother of then Governor Carl Sanders, blew about 3 windows out of her house. And of course, my dad and Mr. Annis had to replace windows. So we gave up our, I don't want to say bomb making, because we didn't know it was going to be a bomb. We just thought it was going to be a big sparkle. So we got out of the fireworks business at that time with some pretty good persuasion behind it. But we were blessed. We had a great childhood. Mike, I wish you were right here with us, and God bless you. I hope you have a wonderful Christmas, and I hope I get to get out there to see you before Christmas. But if not, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Do you remember?
Yeah, it was on Telfair Street. It was a 2-story white frame. Held about, I guess it had about 5 bedrooms. Various brothers in the fraternity used the fraternity house on parties or down. We actually dug out the basement and made it into a party room. That was fun, and of course, Mike was there enjoying the moment. He was very intelligent, and he was capable of having discussions on all kinds of levels. He never found a person he didn't know, or I should say, anyone that knew Michael realized the quality of the man. But there was no place where he went that people didn't know who he was, because he had touched them in some manner or form.
Yeah.
Michael, I want you to know that I love you. I'm going to miss you terribly, but I know you'll be where we all eventually will end up. So God bless you, and see you soon.
If you had to think about it, what are some of your brother's best attributes?
Well, he's brilliant, and he is just a really nice person. You know, lots of people can be smart, but Michael has always been just the most gracious, kind person that anyone could imagine. Mike and I had a 30-year conversation about the law and mental health. Michael had this great interest in promoting the welfare, the mental welfare of people that he represented, as victims, at doing the right thing for defendants.
You think that's what made him such a great judge?
Well, I think he was a great human being to begin with. And I think that was his judicial conduct reflected that. We had a part of our long conversation was whenever I was in Augusta, we would talk about issues like this. And then we also talked by phone multiple times over the years about particular problem cases that he or I were having that involved the psychological and legal intersection. Michael said more than once to me, he said, you know, when you're a judge, everything you do, you follow the law. You don't deviate. You follow the law. You follow the case law. You follow the legal decisions. You follow what the law says. And you keep in mind as you do this, that everything you do affects a multitude of other folks. He was especially, and that if we were in a criminal case, when it comes time to sentencing, that you must speak correctly to not further victimize anyone else, not to do things that disrespect the defendant, not do things that disrespect the other people involved in the case, even in their own peripheral positions. But he was always concerned about everybody. He wanted to be a great judge.
Larry, why do you love your little brother so much?
Well, one thing is, I look at him and I can see my mother, although he looks more like my dad. But both of our parents were very committed to the community, doing things to help others. And if you look at the family members and what they did for a living and what they do now, every one of these folks is involved in doing good for people that they don't have otherwise a relationship with. Merry Christmas, Mike. Have a great Christmas with the family. We all love you and look forward to more and more.
Lao Tzu, in the building of the Great Wall of China, said, "To lead the people, walk behind them," and that's who Mike Annis is. He would be involved, but you would never know it. He was always in the background. He was critical to our establishing the Augusta Junior Sailing Club, but never on the forefront. Always in the back, plotting away, and just great memories. We traveled to Washington, D.C. for the National Cougar Championships. And he and I actually won a race at first place in the national championship. So many fond memories of those days.
I chuckled interviewing a lot of different friends and family members. He just seemed to be kind of happy-go-lucky and little goofy, and things would get tripped up here and there, but he just kind of, his personality would always kind of smile his way through. Did you experience any of that?
Absolutely. He and I guess it's okay. He's retired. It's past the statute of limitations.
It's just between us girls.
Okay. He would, we would go to these regattas, and did I mention I was 14 when I met him?
Yes, you did.
And
very impressionable.
He was 18 at the time, and he would buy beer for a minor. So I hope this is really past the statute of limitations.
Yes, sir.
But just that's the happy-go-lucky piece of it. Mike, buddy, I love you. I hope you have a great Christmas, a happy New Year. Sorry, I'm not going to be there. I'm paying penance and raising 4 kids, so I've kind of reverted back. And but hope you have a blast.